was 6-1 for the Panthers, and they yeah, there was you go to a boxing match and darn a hockey game breaks out.
Yep. Sounds like it was entertaining then.
Well, no, I don't like goon hockey.
No, neither do I.
It's
Yeah, it's crazy. Not okay.
Hey, Patty.
Looks like we're already live on YouTube. Is that right, Blair?
Yeah, we are. We're live on YouTube.
All right. Waiting for everybody to.
Jump on here. Yep. Yep, 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 yep. So, yeah, just getting a few things connotated or denoted or whatever. Yeah. Okay. There we go. Well, there we go. I think we're good. Okay. Okie dokie. Oh, I have not been watching things. Admit all. Okay.
That's what everybody is.
Blair's
Sorry,
uh,
sorry. Yeah, that's me screwing up. Sorry, that's me. Although I did let you in right at 7. Whatever.
All right. Welcome, Brent. Michael, good to see you. Patty, good to have you on with us. All right, Blair, if we're
Good
all
to
set,
go.
you can kick it off. Okay.
Yep.
All righty. Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience. It is Tuesday night, and we're glad you're all here. Well, at least I guess it's night for us here. It may be a different time wherever you are on as I hear all the time, the big blue marble. But just a couple announcements here before we get going tonight. Just want to mention again, if you haven't heard, that Blair has his insider notes. This is the study guide that you can get with all the mind models of everything that we talk about on Tuesday night. It's an opportunity to, a lot of the content that we talk about, we don't end up getting into. Conversation kind of takes us in different directions depending on what needs to be discussed. And so if you want to take a little deeper look into these mind models, this is a great place to get them, is in the study guide. Blair has it from episode 318, and we're all the way to 348 now. So you get all that historical and then all the episodes moving forward. And that's $25 a month or $300 a year. And you can get that by going to www.blairdunkley.com/BDE-insider-notes. Another cool announcement that we have coming is Blair has actually got a podcast that he is bringing back to life. He's already got a few episodes on there. And if you haven't heard about it, it's called My Model Mastery Secrets. And this is a podcast where he's already got, there's 4 or 5 episodes on there already, past ones that have been done. And he's got some in the works moving forward. And those are going to be coming available here hopefully pretty soon. Do we have
In the next probably 2-3 weeks?
Yeah. So that's exciting. So if you haven't heard about Mind Model Mastery Secrets, You can go to podcasts and you can search that, or you can go to the mindmodelmastery.podbean.com. And for those of us on tonight here live, Becky just popped that in the chat. But you can actually go check out the episodes that are already on there and look forward to the ones that are going to be coming soon. That's going to be some pretty exciting stuff on there as well. So look forward to that. With that, tonight, as I mentioned, it's the 348th episode of the Blair Dunkley Experience, where we discuss mind models. Mind models are a collection of extensively tested thought frameworks, skills, and behaviors that enable people to transform their lives intentionally. Your host for the evening is Blair Dunkley, the creator of the mind models. And we are Tim and Becky Graff, your co-hosts and certified mind model coaches, along with our amazing mentor, Patty McClurg. The BDE is Blair's free gift to you and is an opportunity to be here to learn and practice these mind models in a safe and real world environment. Mind models have helped Becky and I personally in many areas of our lives, not only in the business that we've created, but also in resolving an 8-year issue in our marriage within a few hours of learning these mind models, to the navigation and the grief, PTSD from the tragic accident of losing both of our young daughters back in 2020. Mind models allow us to be more effective and increase our capacities and our speed of recovery without traditional counseling. And so can't say enough about mind models and how amazing they are. And we have an exciting episode tonight, and we look forward to learning and diving deeper into tonight's episode. So everybody, welcome to the Blair Dunkley Experience. And if you're on YouTube, we're glad you're here. Please like, please subscribe, please leave the comments as you go throughout tonight, your biggest takeaways, those kinds of things, and please interact with YouTube in the comments section. We love to see the comments and be able to go back and respond and do those kinds of things. So if you're watching on YouTube, we're grateful you're here, and please be just as engaged as if you were here live. So we appreciate you. And with that, wanted to check in. Last week, we were discussing clarity versus certainty, and it was a pretty in-depth conversation. I wanted to check in with the group here that is live, and those of you on YouTube, if you want to, you can put it in the comment section. But any big leftovers or takeaways from last week's conversation? Anything that you noticed this week for yourself?
And welcome, Jacqueline and Amir. Good to have you with us tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, welcome back to Amir. And Reza actually is with Amir. I just had supper with them.
Wonderful.
Way cool.
And Reza is jumping on his own phone too.
Good to
Nice.
see you, Reza. Welcome.
Hey, everybody.
Anybody, anything that leftovers?
Yes,
Pick on somebody?
please. Yes, please.
Oh,
Can you hear
Jack?
me?
We can, please. Go ahead.
Okay. What exactly was it? And then I might notice that I actually did something about it. Because I can't remember. I missed the question and I can't remember what last week was, but I knew that in the wrap up, I set in my head the wrap up. I didn't actually get to comment because I was having issues, but I did make a reminder, a note to myself. So maybe I've been doing it almost subconsciously. You know how you start to practice something and then it goes away,
Yeah.
and then you kind of forget you actually did that.
Yep, I hear you. I was actually
Clarity versus certainty.
Yep. Becky and I were having a conversation about this earlier. So yeah, I was checking in, Jackie, to see if last week we talked about clarity versus certainty, and if there was any leftovers from that episode of clarity versus certainty. So
Oh, no, actually, well, yes, in one way, is like when I kind of just quickly flashed through the last week, I've noticed a lot less anxiety, and I think it's because I have a little bit more clarity on clarity versus certainty. You know, as you kind of expand the definition of what you recognize attached to that certain word. Anyway, you know, I'm babbling on. I'm gonna go now.
Okay.
No, I appreciate you sharing that, Jacqueline, because I think it's a nice segue into what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Yep.
So definitely appreciate you that. Did you have a comment, Michael?
Yeah, I just want to say that I got 100% clarity that I am no longer allergic to penicillin,
Oh,
Awesome. And you're out of the hospital.
and I'm
Yeah.
home. Yeah, I got home yesterday.
Oh, good, good, good.
Great
Well,
news.
I'm going in
Thank
tomorrow.
you for sharing.
So,
Blair, did you want to
we're-
speak to that for a quick second, fill everyone in, or no?
well, I'm just going in for hip replacement surgery tomorrow. So
It's about time.
it's about time. Yes, it is. It's only been what, 9 months or more? I mean, some people wait for like years. I'm fortunate. But anyway,
Okay.
Yep.
Anyone else? Thank you for sharing that, Michael. Glad to hear that that is a happy information fill in for you guys. It was
Mhm.
clear.
yeah, we're glad you're home and doing well. That's awesome.
Okay. Tonight's conversation, we're going to be going deeper on the mind model, general versus specific. Okay. And so, Jackie, what you shared, when you got clear, that's part of what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I would like to start off with what I love from Patty is she loves definitions. And so I'm curious what you guys think of when you think about general. What does general mean to you, or how do you experience general?
Oh, you know what just happened? I totally got overwhelmed in just that moment. It was just like, General? Like, general can be very, very, very general, like general, like you can't even figure out where you are, general. Like, it's just too much possible information coming into you or decisions to make at just too many one times. Like
So
the bite-sized pieces. Sorry, I don't know if
no,
well, no, I was just like that was my reaction to the word when I've never had that reaction to general before. Like, really?
I
I mean,
appreciate
I haven't. Sorry, yeah.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Well, I haven't been speaking a lot of English, right, lately.
Hmm?
Not that I've been speaking other languages, but anyway, it's just interesting when I have that general now and what I was generally. Oh, anyway, it's the word is kind of like oozing in size back and forth. Like, how many layers deep do you want to try to like shape this thing here? Because it's very interesting. It just kind of like peeled like another layer of the oven, the onion, you know, like
Mm.
another level.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Jacqueline, because words do have an effect on us, and how our relationship with the words do have an effect. And so I'm curious if anyone else experienced anything with the word general. So Jacqueline shared that she felt this sense of like overwhelm washing over her, like all these possibilities and all these things like flying at, and I caught a level of speed with that too, Jacqueline. Was that accurate?
Yes, like it's just like, and I'm sitting here thinking as you're describing, what does anybody else want to say, is like, well, I really don't want to have that reaction to that word, so I'm looking forward to debriefing myself and my emotional action. I'm going to put my big toe in, and yeah, all right.
I love that. Thank you for sharing.
well, one of the things, I don't know where this is appropriate in tonight's stuff, but I mean, we go through this stuff yesterday, but I was doing some deep dive with the BDE insider notes.
Mhm.
And with the insider notes, I started really not pontificating, but stating stuff and just adding clarity to a lot of this stuff. And so I sort of asked the question, what makes it important to move from general to specific in communication? Is that it, it's
It works both ways. It
it
depends
does.
on where the person is at. Like, if they're all like friggin' flying around there in the, God knows where type of thing, and all over the map, you want to get specific. You want to try and bring them back down to reality. You might have to chunk it down a little bit because you can't take a
Exactly.
hard landing.
Well,
It's just like, Yeah.
You're absolutely right. But one of the things that I got here was that when we move from general to specific, it generates clarity and understanding. Because we can't get that level of understanding with generalities.
Yes, and
So
it takes away the muddle of the generalities that
absolutely.
you're
And when we
doing in
stay
your
in
head.
muddle, then it doesn't work well. And so I would,
Especially if some of those little memories trigger other little things that, as you work deeper, you're presented with more interesting ways things show up in your body or your mind.
exactly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Amir isn't on the call right now, but I was going to, hey, Reza, you could mention to him that I was just thinking about him and our conversation at supper. And I go, he stays sort of in that general flow of where he's at, as opposed to moving into specifically. And that's exactly what I was doing with him, was shifting him from general to specific. And that, without going into detail, that generality versus specific works rather well.
So, Blair, even though you were being very specific, you were also being very general at the same time, as not to give away too much information or maybe personal information about
Right. I didn't want
details.
to make it personal, but I did want to make it so that he could
Yeah.
recognize how his generalities may be holding him stuck. And he doesn't get specific, especially about things that are effective in his life. If you get specific about what's working, you build on more of what's working. If you don't build on what's working, you just get whatever is left. And that is the most emotionally loaded, usually negative things that are happening in your life. And then you learn to suppress the negative, because that's the thing that you're practicing. So the more that you practice, whatever it is, that's the thing you'll get more of. So if you want more happiness in your life, you literally have to practice being happy. You can't just say, oh, life is unfair right now. Well, life isn't fair or unfair. Life is life. It's what you do with it at the end of the day. That's really the thing. Life, or this whole thing, is a questioning process in clarity versus certainty. And I know we're not doing that right now. We're into general versus specific. But if we don't bridge into general versus specific into the other mind models, like clarity versus certainty, we can't get the drivers for action and change.
That's
I
right.
mean, that was one of the key, like, semi aha moments I had yet again with general versus specific, because we have to have those things that make things work. Well, at dinner, I was talking about my habits that I was doing. Like, how do I
Oh my
manage
goodness.
me?
Oh,
Sorry.
I just had a thought and now it went out of my head and it was really interesting. Oh, shoot.
Sorry.
It had to do with, yes, failing fast, falling forward with a specific intention is what you're
Exactly.
doing if you're bridging those two together rather than
Yep.
like smooshing it together and bumbling our way through, which is also a very effective way to do it as well, because we learn by our mistakes, right?
Correct. But we have to be prepared to evaluate ourselves fairly, as opposed to beat ourselves up. So it may not be as effective as we want it, but where can we make our improvements?
So
So,
yeah, you just have to take the judgment out of there and Bob's your uncle.
yep. And, at the end of the day, problems and situations exist specifically in the real world at a particular time and a particular place. They are externally verifiable. These are all snippets I'm quoting to you from the the BDE insider notes. So I mean, these are like, this was a really good one for the BDE Insider Notes because it drives it into specifics of change and how to link everything. Sorry for hijacking your stuff here,
Oh,
Becky.
you hijacked nothing. I think that it's really important that we discuss again, we started out with what was your experience or what do you understand with general, and what you're talking about right now is very important for us to understand that the way in which we interact with our world is either generally or specifically. And if we want to get the most effective use, traction, growth, pick your thing, then it requires us to understand how we are being either general and or where we need to be specific. So what I was going to share earlier is the definition of general. Okay, so general is rooted in Latin generalis from genus, or a kind or relating to the whole class or order. It's lax in signification, related to or comprehending the whole. It's extensive but not universal, common, usual. That which
It
comprehends
lacks what?
the whole, the total, or the chief and part. And I'm going to put that in the chat because so many times I get brought back to thinking about the whole perception or attitude about life. Sometimes people talk about, life's happening with me, life's happening to me, or life's happening for me. And I think that this has direct correlation to how we are actually behaving
Yep.
in our world. If we're just sitting back waiting for life to happen, or we believe that life is happening to us, it's just this general sense of, I don't necessarily have any control. It's just the way that it is. There's not a lot of specificity happening in there, and it's just kind of muddled together in a big picture. And so what Blair, you were talking about the difference by definition of general versus specific, where general is just kind of that whole bigger global picture, maybe. Specific is precise or particular, peculiar to someone or something, example, characteristics, effects, qualities, specific outcomes, communication. I've added those on to the end because in my line of work, specifically with like entrepreneurs, this is a big deal. This is something that happens almost on every single conversation. So when you came out, Blair, asking, what's the role of general versus specific, it's huge in alignment. It's huge in alignment with yourself and how you're communicating so that another person can understand you. So question is, are generalities, we make I can't even say the word today.
Generalities?
Thank you. Are they universal? What do you think, Patty?
I'm going to say no. We interpret everything through the filter of our own experiences, our own history, and that's different for everybody. So when somebody's taking in a generality, that filter is going to be there of their own attitudes, experiences, etc. So a generality leads to a lot of miscommunication because it's not common.
So not common, very specific generalities are not specific to a person because of our own filters. So I'm curious, Brent, is there ever a time that generalities work for you?
Ooh.
Yes, there are.
How?
Give me a
Tell me.
second. I was writing that note down when Patty said, answer the question.
All right, fair enough.
Okay. Yeah, I remember. So generality. So if there's instances where like overviews, a 30,000 foot overview is very effective if you're speaking to groups or something, and that group, which you're not getting deep into specifics, but staying at a higher level so as a general view, but then that view is effective, but it's particular to that group. So it is still in that little world, but it is effective. That's one sense. I remember seeing that, but that's like class, like going to school. If you're in lectures or those things, those are the experiences you get in workshops or the like events you go to, speakers. In those instances, that's what you're experiencing. It's a general, more of a general perspective than specific. So they would dig down deeper into specifics. You can dig into like all the details, and it can take very long to get to, a point or the information to get across.
So I'm getting a sense that it's not like either general or specific, that there's kind of like this ebb and flow. Does that fit for what you're describing, Brent, for you? As far as like the general overview versus getting into the specifics, there's kind of that ebb and flow between how much to give based on the purpose of the interaction.
Yeah. So they're specifically being general because it's effective in that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen what Brent's talking about in business,
Mm.
where people, especially who hold a measure of authority, will keep things general so that they can make it up as they go, so that they have the option to edit or change something without somebody going back and saying, well, you said dot dot dot. Well, you know, they leave all kinds of possibilities open to themselves, but then the people who are expected to behave to that get they get caught up in the fact that they can't behave to that. You can't behave to general things, but you've got a manager who's using that in more of a self-protective, self-defensive way, and you've got somebody trying to behave to that, and it leads to a lot of communication breakdown within that. But this project needs to be done really soon. Get on it. Well, then they can come back and say, well, I told you it needed to be done soon. Where is it? It's like the manager can keep these things open-ended to allow himself the flexibility, but the person behaving to it is the one who gets knotted up in that. Have you ever experienced that, Blair, when you're working with businesses? Have you ever seen that happen?
Yes, a lot. And that goes into a different mind model, and it goes into accountability, responsibility, and authority.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
the model that you're using is somebody's holding authority, but not being accountable to their own variables. So
Right.
the issue with that is they're not moving from um, general to specific. They're staying general and expecting specific. And that's not an effective way to go at the
No.
end of the day. So we need to.
Aware of that though when they're
Mm.
doing that, Blair?
Are they aware? Sometimes they are. Usually they're not.
Yeah,
Usually
because
it's
I would
just
say not more than yes,
yeah,
they would be aware. I
most
mean,
of the time they're not, because that's how they've seen other managers manage. So they do the same thing of what they saw somebody else do. Now, it
mhm.
doesn't mean that it's effective. It just means that's what they're doing. And usually when I'm in a place like that, I can, question them using mind models and get them to the point where they can see things being not that effective so they can change their behavior. But they don't have an alternative behavior. And if you don't have a different behavior, you can't behave differently.
I
Mhm.
think, Blair, this is it segues into like this other aspect of specifics. So what difference does specifics make in behavior? To your point, they maybe didn't know what they didn't know. They didn't have something new and different to behave to. So in that light, what difference does specifics make in behavior? What do you think, Reza?
Uh, Behavior. What difference? So can you, if I understand the question correctly, the what difference does it make if you're specific or general in your behavior?
Yeah,
Like,
so the question was, what difference does specifics, or do specifics make in behavior?
I don't know.
So
Can
do
you
you,
take action generally, or do actions need to be specific?
Mm, they need to be specific.
So if you are in business can you take general actions?
You can take general, but it won't be effective. It won't work.
And I would argue, are they actually behaviors or discussions about things that have happened? Like past behaviors.
Hmm.
And
Maybe they're
people use
specific.
these as examples of why it won't work.
Yeah, yeah. So they're generalized.
Correct. And so,
That
what
specific behavior.
correct. But if you get down to a specific behavior in business, you can test it out to find out if it works or not. Like Jackie was saying earlier, fail fast, falling forward, the 4 Fs. You can't test the generalization because it's general.
Mhm.
There's nothing to work up against or to. Okay.
And this comes in so many places, like when you were asking the question, Blair, like, can you behave generally? Like, I have to do something very specific to do this. I can't just generally take a drink, right? And when we're thinking about the
Well,
different,
you can try, you know, you can
take an
pour-
attempt. I don't want to do that. So there's a level of risk cost analysis happening, very general outcome potential versus very specific behavior. So I don't get all covered in my beverage. Um, General versus specific is such a powerful one because it shows up in so many places. So, how we're communicating in business, if we want to have a task done, being very specific about what needs to go into it, who needs to be involved in it, what their specific things are. And to your point, Patty, I've been a part of several things where it's just thrown out there, like, go do the thing. It's like, I have no idea what the outcome is. Like, what's the intention for all this? It's just, I can do activity, sure. But what is it that you actually want to get? So the ability to slide between generally specific, because you were talking about, Brent, like an overview. Like you're generally specific about the concepts that may be covered within this thing that we're doing, and then according to or appropriate to time and place, going deeper into those can give a sense of structure and stability, but it's not necessarily like the nitty itty bitty uber specific pieces that might be necessary for, say, the execution of like an action plan. Okay, tying your shoe, unless you have slip-ons. Okay, there's some things that have to happen specifically, maybe not in the same order for everyone, but for a shoe to be tied. Okay, so when you think about those are like physical things, but when we're talking about language, how effective is it to move from general to specifics in language? What do you think, Leslie?
In moving from general to specific in a conversation, you have to be aware of what the other person in the conversation, what level of understanding they have about what they're asking or wanting to talk about that involves you. That it happened again yesterday and today, where I was asked to provide services, but the information that they gave was insufficient and ineffective to be able to evaluate. So I had to give a budget, but that budget was representative of the risks that I can recognize in doing that type of project. And I said it's going to be a high number until we can get down to some specifics, until I can get to the site and do a walkabout to understand what's really going on, you know, then then I can refine the number because all the risks and liabilities can be defined and we can talk real numbers. And following up on doing that proposal yesterday, they were impressed, but they're going with somebody else. So my response was just to say, well, I hope you get what you want, because if I wasn't allowed to go do a site visit or be clear of what we're giving you and what needs to be done, then how can anybody else? You know?
Well, that brings up an interesting thought for me, Leslie. My father was in contracting, doing tile work and different floorings and stuff for a few years, and he kind of ran into a very similar situation where he would go and give a quote, but the people were very general as to what they wanted. And so he would end up giving kind of a general overview of it. And then he would find a lot that, someone else would come in getting the same information, but would bid quite a bit lower. And they would go with the lower bid, but then they would end up coming back to my father later, wanting it fixed because whoever got involved and did it in the first place got in over their head and ended up either making mistakes or doing it, a half a job. And so he ended up going in, and in the long run, it usually ended up costing them more and a lot more work. So yeah, when it comes to
Absolutely. And actually that is something that I covered off in this today, was that one thing I had not mentioned yesterday in our discussion is that, yes, we have gone back and had to redo work that other people had done because they did it incorrectly. And, we remain available to do it right the first time.
Yeah.
And I love that you've shared this, Leslie, because it really, for most people who are in business or who are going into a working relationship of some sort, generalities are kind of a scary space to be, because you don't really know what the outcome is, what the investment of your time is going to yield, if anything, if there's alignment between the two parties. There's a lot of gray area that can, muddy the waters unless you're engaging with, seeking for clarity by asking questions. So like we talked about last week, and then getting more specific around the constraints of what it is you're working on. And Blair, your quote, "Problems or situations all exist in the real world and are specific to a real time and place that is externally verifiable. Specific behaviors or systems can be addressed and changed only when specific information is shared and acted upon." So it's not just the communication of it, but it's actually getting down and doing the work, the externally verifiable bits of that. And this is such a, were you gonna say something?
Wait, I was just going to say, so that it brings up, the whole effectiveness of mind models as well. When we talk about general versus specific, when Blair created these, the idea was to get specific, to be able to, we've talked here on the Blair Dunkley experience before about, knowing the what of it is fine, but that's very general. Knowing what to do, but most people don't know how to do it. And that's where the mind models come in, and they get into the behavior of it and the how of actually taking action on something. It gives you those frameworks to be able to move yourself forward. And so it really gets into that specifics, and it gives you that framework to move forward instead of just, well, I know what to do. Okay, great. That's a great place to start, but now what? And so mind models, just to share with Blair's quote, I mean, that's in real life. They're meant to interact with what we're doing in our everyday and be usable processes.
Brent, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was, with this, what we were going over with the language, general to specific, that can cause confusions and misalignments between the two if two parties are two different ways. If you're trying to get specific, but one staying general. And then earlier we were discussing, it was Patty mentioned something. It was what can be effective at the general, and my mind was the thought funnel. working from general to specific. So if you're coming up with ideas, but you have to be general because you're not, you're coming up with something, and then you whittle down to the specifics as you're getting deeper and deeper. So you have an idea and you want to test that idea, then you get more specific, which one may work you want to go with. Then you're going down and be specific so you can take action. And then that would be the same with the language. If you're working from general to specific to become something that you can take action on, with the specific language, things that can be addressed. So you're trying to work from that general to specific to create an alignment and something that can be something can be done. So moving down, that
And
getting
what mind
closer to
models
that funnel.
and what
Yeah,
mind
the
models
funnel.
would help you do that? What mind models can you use to help you navigate that thought funnel from general to specific?
Well, I think he was talking about like content in the way of, and just bear with me, Brent. I'm gonna.
Mhm.
He was talking about the funnel. That's the process, and
Mhm.
getting into that funnel and creating these different levels was actually what he was talking about.
I would agree. I was just curious if he could illuminate for some of people who are newer on the BDE what mind models could be used in that process of going from
Yep.
general.
Curiosity, one, questioning, uh, the clarity, like ones we went over, clarity versus certainty. Seeking clarity. What was there was another one. Here we go. Ask versus tell. It's like we went over deeper in those ones, naming and labeling to get specific, what it is exactly you're working on. The three E's, you could use using the three E's. What if I can picture trying to roll these off the top of my head here, if I can. Three E's, naming and labeling. I picked up ask versus tell.
I think you've more than covered it, actually,
Yeah, I
myself.
mean, process versus content, like
Come
Jackie
on.
was stating, that's
I,
that's one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Jackie. Yeah. Jacqueline,
Well,
thank you.
and
did you
and
just
really,
say sorry?
did you just say
I've
sorry?
been working on not saying sorry, and it's funny. I just picked that up. It was good when you can't say sorry in English and you have to say it in another language. Anyway, that's another learning curve I went through.
That was great to notice there. You noticed
Mm,
that about that.
mm. Well,
And
I
but
guess it's like the. Remember earlier, I had that sensitivity to what was the word general. And
Mhm.
sorry, I've been working on that in my mind, and now maybe I've been doing it more subconsciously now. I have to notice the next time I kind of get too close to somebody in the aisle of the grocery store, and I go, "Oh, sorry," like that stupid type of sorry. And I mean, I call it stupid because it's meanly. I probably maybe could refer to it as meaningless because like what is that? That's interesting. I'll have to look into that.
Jacqueline, question for you, please. You open for a question?
Yes, because I think I'm going down a rabbit hole.
Okay. When you have sorry like that, is that general or specific?
Oh, Patty, just a second. I got to sit up and pay attention now. Come on. All right. Ask me that again. Oh, here, let me try and
Okay.
put my video on. I don't even know if I'm
Hey,
on here.
Jacqueline, it's wonderful to see you. Are you back in Canada?
Yes, 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 yes.
Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
But when you do that, bump into somebody and you're saying you're sorry, you're sorry, you're sorry, is that general or is that specific?
Oh, actually, all I'm getting from that is just this yuck right now. Like when I kind of like trying to look for an answer, like my feelings are oozing up and going, that's like
Is it very similar to the feeling that you felt earlier, Jackie?
no, not at all. Really not, because this was
Okay.
more of a yuck. The other was more of like a, but without the things, like the really big, like instant, like whole chest down to your pelvic area type of like body reaction.
You know what? One of the things that I was doing again in my notes here, it talks about how general versus specific. If you move from general to specific, it supports emotional management and reduces stress. Because people with a limited vocabulary, and this is sort of what you're inferring here, just constantly saying sorry and not figuring out where you're at with it. You just sorry, or I'm fine, or I'm sad, I'm mad, whatever, but
Yeah.
you don't get specific, which does not provide a complete view of your true emotional state and can lead to stress in and of itself.
Well, I'll tell you what, Blair, I could not get with a specific at all if I stopped myself in a mall, not in like one of those aisles where I didn't exactly touch somebody, but I was kind of might have. And I said, oops, sorry. You know, I couldn't get specific with that, like where the hell am I and what I'm doing, because it's just so like, it's an absolute behavior. I am not even consciously aware of the mind process to get there, or what I'm not using. Well, obviously I'm not using mind models because I'm getting to that place where it just pops out automatically.
It's a response behavior, and response behaviors are habituated, just practiced over and over again. And there's not necessarily a lot of connected meaning to it. It's just a
No,
response.
it's not at all, because like I could have bumped into somebody, I could have walked in front of somebody, like different senses of getting into someone's personal space or nudging them, or like
Exactly.
hitting them with my suitcase. Like it's all the same sorry. It doesn't mean fuck all, really, unless I
Exactly.
really really I really like, oh my goodness, I am really sorry, and like I want to make sure they're okay, you know.
Exactly. And when
Yeah.
you start generalizing your emotions, you remove the ability to manage your stress, because all you do is just generalize emotions. So, but by being specific about emotions, such as, um, you know, distinguishing between rage, annoyance, inconvenience, or you're just calling it all, I'm sorry, I'm mad, I'm whatever, can significantly impact that feeling of stress. So again, getting specific is
Yeah,
a
they're kind of like you've looked, oh, I fucked up again. Oh, I fucked up again. Oh,
exactly, as opposed to
yes.
identifying what didn't work and what did work. When you
Or did I even have contact with that person? Did that person even notice I was alive? Did that person even acknowledge the fact that I said sorry? Because
exactly,
there's so many reactions, and I'm like, oh, that didn't bother them. But I was like, blur,
yep,
regurgitating the, I guess, a social norm that I've taught myself that I probably should get rid of.
okay,
Yeah. So this brings up one of the things, Patty, that you love. I love hearing you talk about, actually. So would you mind sharing your perspective on and how encoding, consolidation, and retrieval of memory plays with general versus specific? Because it kind of dovetails off of what Blair's talking about with Jacqueline, as far as like these R-type behaviors when we've habituated something and how it might fix with this.
Yeah. We have two different kinds of memory, one being our what memories, which are technically called declarative memories, and the other being our how memories, called procedural memories. When we have habituated responses, our brains are looking to conserve energy, and they prune the neural pathway, they prune that ganglia so that you can get from point A to point B very, very quickly. And your brain doesn't have to think, it doesn't have to process, it doesn't have to analyze, it just goes from here to here, boom. Every time we retrieve a memory, something about that memory is going to change. Even though we think we've got it, we're holding on to it, we know that we know that we know that was the memory. It's not. It changes every single time it's brought up. And so what the brain is left with are these generalities like Jackie's describing that, sorry, that's been built into a habituated response in her life, and that whenever anything happens, it's somehow her fault, and she's got to say she's sorry because it's somehow her fault. And so instead of even looking at, am I really responsible for anything?
Patty, I must say something there. I do not feel like it's my fault because there's nothing to fault.
Right, but I'm talking about where the behavior came from to begin with, then all those other things are pruned
Okay, I
away.
missed that. Sorry, yes. I'm
That's
just
okay. No, the other
need
things are
There you
pruned
go,
away.
Jackie. Sorry.
Yeah, we
Blair,
just did the
fuck
sorry
off.
thing.
Stop that. You know, that was really good, you ought. That was very good. Stop that. That was an amazing
Anyway, it just leaves us with that
Patty.
response going from point A to point B very quickly, just like
Yeah.
Jess demonstrated for us, because I'm sure she would have had a handle on it if she didn't know we needed to see her do that. So she was very gracious to provide us an example, a specific example. So when we're looking at these things, our brains want us to get general. They want those things because it takes a lot more memory to retain specifics of something. A lot
Brent
more
want
memory.
to say something?
I don't know,
Did
Brett, you
put
want to
your
say
hand up?
something?
Yeah, no, I was going to add in there so we hit on generalizing emotions. How's the affect that, like the emotional impact on the memory? You said the brain wants to like specifics. It will alter the memory. Now, if your emotions in that state, does that change that or affect
When
that?
you're absolutely, when you're experiencing really intense emotions, the memory encodes differently, deeper, more permanently. But if somebody is giving you directions from point A to point B, maybe you can keep all of those in your head. Maybe you'll get there in the next 15 minutes, but can you do it? Can you repeat those things in an hour? Can you repeat them in 2 hours or 3 hours? You know, frequently they're gone, or you remember only a piece of it. The brain wants to keep things general. It's easier to remember, but we train our brain for specifics. One of the unique things that my models do is that my models, excuse me, my models in themselves are specific. Every
What?
mind model, my
My
models are specific. Every one of them is specific. And when we begin to think in the patterns of mind models, our brains latch on to those common meanings of words, and our brain is able to behave specifically to the mind models because of the specific meanings of the words being so well integrated into our lives.
It's a pre-existing process.
Yes,
And
pre-existing process. I love that.
that's how I designed these to become sticky behaviors or a sticky process. Because it's into things that are fundamentally required. Meanings of words are fundamentally required for us to communicate. And we practice these meanings day in, day out. Every time we open our mouth and talk, or when we talk to ourselves, we're practicing the meanings of what these things are.
And also unsticking.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're sticking, aren't we? Well, we're creating new dendrites and pathways and all of that. And if we're unsticking, we're kind of killing them off with the same method, but just in reverse.
Not quite the same way, Jackie. What we wind up doing is we shift. We don't really unstick them. We shift them. They flow, and it really is a
And
flow.
reignite any minute. It's like an addiction. Like you can all of a sudden, like say you've got your new behavior and it's been like whatever, and then all of a sudden you have a drink and then you pop right back into that old motorway.
True, but then that is true. However, those are process-based memories.
Okay,
So,
just
and that's not
let me get this for a minute. when you're saying process-based memories,
How based brain pathways, you could say. We remember how pathways better than we remember what pathway.
right. Sorry, I need to connect the pathways to the concept of memory. That may sound like not a big deal, but I'm serious. Like the memory, I've never connected with the pathways, even though I know pathways create behaviors and they create memories, but they've never been connected back the other way.
I'm not sure what you mean by back the other way.
Well, now I'm going around in a 360 here. No, now we'll just like I don't want to get into a long conversation about it because let's just move on.
Okay.
Yeah. And if I remember, I'll come right back to you.
Okie dokie.
So as we're talking, Patty, thank you for filling us in on how and Blair also how the specificity works with our mind model, specifically work with our biology, the pre-existing conditions. So when we're thinking about memories, and maybe this will help Jacqueline, when we think about when we're attempting to remember something, your directions, Patty, like for me, somebody gives me directions, unless I do the behavior, unless I do the thing, I'm not going to remember. My
Yeah,
short
me
term
too.
for like directions and numbers like that is like this guy, on the other hand, he's like a still trap for numbers.
Well, see, and it's interesting when you were describing that, Patty. Just real quick, what came up for me is with my line of work before what we're doing now. I drove truck for many years, and so we would have each trailer and each bill of lading, those kinds of things as we went throughout. They were all down to a specific number. And so I would have to remember, the number of the trailer, the number of the bill of lading, like the number of the whatever the pallet or whatever the thing was that was on the trailer. And so when you went into work, you got handed basically a list of numbers, and you had to remember those numbers
Mhm.
until it was delivered, till, the day was done. And so I programmed my brain to put in a set of numbers that I remembered throughout the day. And then as soon as the day was over, I essentially could, almost like hitting a button in my head, I just deleted those numbers. And the next day, there was a new set of numbers that I would remember through the whole day. And so I just got in this process of remembering as long as I needed those numbers and then being able to just almost delete them. And it was so weird how sometimes I would, subconsciously or whatever, just delete those numbers in my head. And then someone would ask me, and I'm like, they're gone. Like, it was, I'd really have to dig, so to speak, to recall. So it's just interesting how we can do that. We get habituated in the process of you know remembering things and then cutting that ganglia off and brushing those when they're not needed anymore.
And for me, I find that I have to add and employ more than just one thing. Like I can't just auditory hear something and then remember. I need to like find a pattern. So like either a name relation or like be able to see if it's numbers. I have to see where they're at on the keypad so I know which pattern to follow, like with my eyes.
Yeah, tapping. Like the
Sorry.
tapping of the keypad.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
there's something else involved, like hearing, vision, and kinesthetics. So a lot of times when we're going from general to specific, we're employing a lot more than maybe we're consciously aware of so that we can actually behave the way that we need to in that situation. And so curious question, we've talked around a few different things and we're getting close to the time, I think, for wrap up, but I'd like to check in with you, Michael. What's coming up for you or what are you pulling from this conversation tonight?
Well, I was just earlier today, I was working on my ideal client profile for my weight loss coaching business, as well as my solution statement for what I can offer them. And, starting off with the whole general, ideal client is somebody who's 300 to 700 plus pounds, but then also focusing on people who have money. So maybe entrepreneurs, and then men and women ages 35 to 60 years old. And then even a little bit more specific, getting down to someone who's most recently had like a health scare, like a heart attack, or because I was in the hospital, so that came to mind, helping me get more granular down to the more specifics of my ideal client profile.
And what did that process do for you?
Well, it just helped me, sort of get more laser focused and identify who they are specifically, and then also, starting off with the generality of like who I was 2 to 5 years ago, and who they are right now. Working, bit by bit to go from general to more specific.
So it sounds like to me that you got a bit more clarity through that process. Would that be
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's really the power that comes from us. We're dissecting mind models in like pairs, so general versus specific. But as Blair mentioned earlier, like they really intertwine and they flow very well with each other. So in the process of getting to either like taking a generality and getting more specific, as Brent so masterfully shared with us, there's multiple mind models that can be used. And I don't want to understate the power of that. Being able to understand the specific definition of mind models and pairs, and then also the specificity to how they can be used, can really impact or increase the effectiveness that we have in our lives. And it really doesn't matter what arena that we're focusing on with ourself or internal self-talk as we work with other people, with teams, build out projects, etc. And so this ability to take something from what we are aware of and get curious about it, employing curiosity, asking questions to get more specific, gets more utility. So I think, anybody else have anything else they'd like to share? I think we're about at the point for running into wrap up. If no one else has anything to
Just wanted to quickly mention, one of the things that has come up for me a couple times tonight while we've been talking about general versus specific is we start out kind of with the general, well, and maybe this isn't fair to say, but we have a general idea of what we want to discuss.
The ballpark.
Yeah. And as we go through the night, it's interesting how through these conversations, it gets a little more specific and a little more specific, and we take it a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper. And to what Brent was saying earlier, when you're in a group setting, I can see how it would be effective at first, like we do here very much on the BDE. We start with a general idea of a conversation and then follow throughout the conversation where that goes, and we get through everybody's ideas, their experiences, we get a little more specific, a little more specific, a little more specific, and it also becomes an
I
experiential
just thought of a
learning.
question. Is that
Sure.
getting more specific, or is it us getting more clarity? Because our definition is expanding,
Yeah.
but nothing's changed really. Or
So,
has it?
okay, first of all, something has changed because we've gotten more clarity, number one.
Okay, so that's
So,
the behavior.
and so secondly, like I was saying earlier, is general versus specific interweaves. And Becky, you said this
Yes.
perfectly, is like they interweave. They aren't standalone per se. My job when I created these was to break out unique thought patterns that could be viewed independently, because the vast majority of my clients
Exactly.
were
Yeah.
having a huge problem because they were multi-smushing idea after idea, concept after concept, so that their brain was a mess. It was all smushed together and a big gray blob of ineffective
Generality.
thinking. Yeah, it just did not work. So the mind models needed to be teased out. It took me literally 17 and a half years to figure these ones out, so that you could say, okay, here's something that you can explain simply enough on its own, but none of these are technically standalone. They're all interplaying with each other.
The only time that I find that a standalone is when you're actually learning a new one and you're trying it on. That's
Correct.
definitely standalone, because you don't even know what other ones even exist. You might be possibly using some sort of information or a memory or something, but you don't know those other ones exist. Because what I find about my models is they're just simply brain thoughts, like ways of classifying the route you take. It's like a little roadmap, you
Correct.
know? and then
that adds
sometimes
clarity, and that adds specificity, and it gets it out of the general mush.
Yeah, I love that too, because when I think of the word intentionality, that for me is specific. If am very intentional about something, I'm honing in on a specific thing that I'm wanting to work on. And so that helps, again, like channel, drive, put bumpers on whatever the thing is that I'm working with, because that's
you
the
know
thing.
what?
Awareness.
Sorry, Becky, what you're saying about that, channeling that is, I've noticed lately that I have been filtering it all through one type of lens.
And how's that been working for you?
Much more effectively, because I have been sorting out the wormholes or the rabbit holes. Like there's like sometimes you come to a junction in the morning, you wake up, or this is what it kind of feels like in my head. I wake up and I've got these kind of like, and they visually feel like holes. Not emotionally, thank goodness. And it's like, which rabbit hole do I want to go down today? And it's like the little good person and the little bad person and the other little person in the middle that's trying to balance everything out. I'm kind of making a joke of it, but yeah, it's all about clarity. And sometimes you generally just want to fall in a hole to kind of see how you will get out of it, because if it doesn't work, you will get yourself out of it and go and dive into another hole.
And even that behavior, you have to specifically fall in that hole, right? So it's that ebb and flow between general
Yeah.
versus, but you
Yeah.
get to be in the driver's seat, which
Can
is
I
really
make a personal request? Can we move to wrap up if at all possible? Because I have my
Surgery
surgery
tomorrow.
very early, and I have to coordinate with my daughter this evening. So
Yes, sir. I was actually just going to hand it off to Patty for that, please.
thank you.
Okay. Reza, I noticed you just put something in the chat for wrap up. Do you want to give us your wrap up real quickly?
Yes, I love it. 8 out of 10. Going back to specific and just I appreciate the mind model, general versus specific. It definitely helped me out in business a lot, in business relationships and personal relationships and everything. It's very crucial. It's one of the fundamental mind models. So I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, Reza, it's really wonderful to have you back. It's great to see you here again.
It was great.
Jacqueline, would you like to give us your wrap up?
Yes. Okay. Hang on. Oh, I'm doing the wrong mouse. Yeah. I feel like I've had a little bit of sunburn today. I've started to get specific lately around what I need to do on a daily basis to stop me from being bored to tears, because I'm retired. Anyway, that sounds really bad. It's like a problem people would hate to have, but anyway, never mind. The clarity versus certainty mixed up with specific in general is, I can see how beautifully it braids together.
Yes, a braid. It's a beautiful picture for
It,
that.
it just beautifully braids together in little wisps, because there's more to come. Like
Yes.
it's forever growing, like our ganglia. Anyway, whatever. It was a 9 out of 10 for me tonight. I'm not sure that if I wrapped up, but that's all I want to say.
Okay. Well, Jacqueline, I'm glad you're
Thank you.
back. It's nice to not be fighting time zones to talk to you. So, let's see. Michael, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
Yeah, I'd say it's an 8 out of 10 for me as well. Just just helping my mind get both to go from general to specific, as well as just getting more clear on things as well.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, would you like to participate and wrap up tonight?
Yes, thank you. Um, I'll give it a 9. It was, I know we've looked at this before, and I enjoyed it previously, and I enjoyed it again this evening. It's um, a good a good refresher because yes, it's um, in part of analyzing situations um, to consider, you know, how can we move this from general to more specific? Um,
Mm.
because yeah, it's if you're trying to achieve a goal, it's very hard to do it generally.
Very true. Very true, Leslie.
So
Thank you.
I'll keep it at that. Thank you.
Hey, well, thank you. Shannon, are you able to participate tonight? There you are.
I wish I could see Shannon.
Fine.
Oh, yeah, there she is. Oh, sorry, I forgot. I'm on mic. I forget that.
No, you're
I'll
good.
turn
It's
it
great
off.
to see you.
I'm gonna turn it off.
No, you're great. It's wonderful to see everyone. The question Becky asked at the beginning to Brent about, different, is there a time when general, works? And I remember the very first time I learned this mind model, it was still when I was like, okay, one of these is good, one of these is bad, one of these is the one you want to do, one of these is the one you don't want to do. And to be able to, kind of let them spread out and mellow out a little bit and learn to have fun with both and to learn the moments. I just was thinking in my head through the whole time, and with naming and labeling emotions, communication, task related things, all of which I find specific to be more effective. But I was really challenging myself to think about the times when general actually is helpful and when pulling the camera lens back for a broader perspective is helpful. And so, anytime I'm missing something or I need more context or I perhaps am in a why and I need to get myself out, that perspective helps with that process. And so if there's something missing in a process or something cumbersome that's like catching my attention, I find that drawing back to general and starting to ask myself general questions. Okay, what do I know about this? And then eventually, the clarity and the more specific funnel together. But it's one of those ones that it'll be fun to think about if there are other times when general is effective for me too. But that's just when I noticed it in my own, scan of my own mind. But the one, let's see. I also really appreciated, Jackie, you're saying that just the route you take. I love that. Really simple. It's the route you take, and I can learn to observe the routes that other people take. And I have language now to describe those things and to be able to compare and contrast the routes that we're learning with my models and how someone else may go through life, and to try and have tools to interpret what I'm seeing that other people are doing. Um, so all of it, building a language and building a framework to even discuss how you move through life and how you think. So it's a fun one. And the applications for it are endless. So that is a 8 for me tonight, and we'll be thinking about you tomorrow, Blair. Good luck.
Thank you.
You got this. All the things.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon. Brent, would you like to participate and wrap up tonight?
Yes, I participate. Yeah, I would, man, one thing that Shannon brought up here real quick was in the beginning, when first learned my models was like, okay, one works, one doesn't work. But that's not the case in their definition. It's where they work and how they are, and it's how your brain uses them specifically and where they may be effective and where they're not to get to understanding the process. of the mind models and being specific and understanding those processes and how they work. So getting deeper into that is that's what I'm seeing is a lot more common, digging into like these recaps, getting deeper is that's the point we're getting to well, that's where I'm at anyways, seeing that next level, that more of the mind models, like a next level deeper of where I'm getting. And then the intertwine of the mind models and how they work here, we're able to see that like the process. I know when Jackie was saying like the routes we take, I was like, oh, it's like a process of how you're actually doing and going and flowing. So it's the process of using the mind models and being specific with those and moving. And then the memory with the how your brain works, wanting to be general because it saves energy and time. It's shorter just to remember things in general. But then being intentional with the mind model specifically because they are pre-existing behaviors, but then being able to identify them and use them and notice them so you're able to access that specific piece, that specificity. And then how,
Transferable
yeah,
skills, Brent. Transferable skills.
yeah. And then the funneling, like process and content, how they're two sides of the same coin, but general to specific. And then when you get to a point of specificity, maybe you're like stepping back a little bit, getting more general, like what Shannon was saying, if you have to step back, but then getting even more specific, you're able to see from a different perspective and out more than going deeper in being specific. So the levels are just, it's starting to get a little more deeper for me and to see that. So, and that's where I think in the reboot, I think that was the purpose of that is digging more into them deeper than just the surface level. So I'd say tonight was a 9 for me. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you, Brent.
Yep.
Yeah, the mind models, they're simple, but they're sophisticated. They're not, they're not a,
They're like
they're,
these little bots that can kind of run around and disconnect and reconnect and even make your muscles move on your face or your hands move. You know what I mean? Like, I'm serious.
I know, that's a great analogy.
Yeah.
So, Becky, would you like to participate in wrap up?
Yes. Um, a 9.25 for me tonight. General versus specific is another one of my favorites. And there is the word that comes up for me when we're talking about these two is fluidity. Because much has been shared before, I find myself so hyper focused on things that I start getting myself stressed out. I have to remember to kind of let's breathe a little bit, let's step back and not be so pointed. And then
Get general.
yeah, I have to choose to be like not so focused on it, right? Because then I'm walking through the trees and I'm staring at a trunk and that's all I see is just the bark on the tree. So to your point, Shannon, when you're in the forest, sometimes it helps to take a step back and assess. And even in that process, there is an ebb and flow. He's laughing at me. There's even an ebb and flow of general versus specific. And the one of the things that really connected for me tonight, Blair, that you said is and it sprung off the back of what Patty was talking about, memories. Okay. So memories can be general and specific, but the specificity isn't always the same. And this is a little bit off topic, but the thing that stuck for me is that everything changes and nothing stays static. So even though we think it is, right, that perspective that we choose, it means it can't be exactly the same, which means there's opportunity for growth and transition. That means you functionally can't be stuck unless you choose to be. And that comes from giving up on curiosity, giving up on finding more specifics or stepping back and allowing time and space for other things to fill that. That really connected with me because it's an ebb and flow that I negotiate personally on a daily basis. And it's just a great reminder that, sometimes the stories that we tell ourselves are very generally contextual and we generally think that we're stuck in concrete. But then when we choose to get curious and get more information and get curious, we can actually create our route and pick our route no matter what we're being faced with. So that's me.
Well said. Tim, would you like to participate in wrap up?
Now they're laughing at me.
So
I'm
just to
feeling
be
judged over here.
just to be very clear, I'm not laughing at her. But can I just say ditto? Great minds think alike. And my wrap up, what I was thinking is, when you have general versus specific, if you're like up on a ridge, you're overlooking a forest and there's a deer and you're looking through those binoculars, a lot of times you just stick the binoculars up in the general direction. You're looking all over like, where is that deer? And it's taking them off or adjusting them, so zooming out, to find roughly the general area where it's at, and then you can zoom in on that specific place. It's a lot of the analogy, like she said, about the forest through the trees, and you have to get a general. I've found for myself that a lot of times, to get that curiosity, to get those juices flowing, so to speak, in the mind, I have to zoom out and look at it from the 1,000-foot view, and then get more specific, ask a question, get more specific, ask a question, get more specific, and zoom in. And so I just thought it was funny she shared that, because that's where my head was, and great minds think alike. And then with what Patty was sharing earlier with the mind, that fascinates me, with memories and how we prune the ganglia, and how, depending on the different pathways that we take in life and things that we just stay general, and we stay general, and it prunes and prunes and prunes, we create a habit pattern that isn't necessarily, it may be easier, but it's not necessarily most effective. And so, when we stay curious, when we get specific, then we can pick our path, and to Jackie's point of the map, we can pick our route that is more effective. Because when you view a map, you can either take a specific route to your destination, or there's many other roads that you can take as well. And it just depends on how effective you want to be. And so just those imageries were coming up for me. A lot of what was shared, and it's such a fun topic to dive deep into, and the ebb and flow between general and specific. So it's a 9-5 for me. Thank you, everybody, for your participation tonight. It was awesome.
Thank you. Blair, would you like to give us your wrap up tonight?
Yes. Yeah, it's a big it's a big and small topic all rolled into one. So general and specific.
General and a specific topic.
Yes. Both are effective. But exploring, when I was working on the insider notes, exploring all the interweaving, the braiding together of different mind models with the construct of general versus specific and clarity versus certainty from last week. That was honestly a way I have not looked at mind models before with this level of clarity. So it's when you said, Patty, that mind models are both simple but sophisticated, I have to agree. They're way more sophisticated than I thought they were, because they've taken on a life of their own. Literally how they interplay with each other. So it's amazing.
The AI of mind models.
Yeah, really.
It's
Absolutely.
this blooming.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Okay, that's me.
That's you. Thank you, Blair. All of us wish you the absolute best tomorrow. You will be in our thoughts, and for those of us, you will also be in our prayers.
Thank you.
But
Thank you,
we will be
Shanna.
keeping you close to the heart tomorrow and hoping for the best outcomes.
Oh,
My wrap up, I really missed being here last week. I really missed you guys and missed the discussion, being part of things. You all add so much value every week when you come to the BDE, participating and sharing your thoughts and allowing us to go deeper. It facilitates our ability to go deeper when we can see things through the way other people see them. So when you contribute, we get a peek behind your eyes, which then opens new possibilities and new understandings to us. So your participation is incredibly valuable. I really want to thank you for that. For me, this has been an 8.5 tonight. I've got got little notes from what everybody said written down. That is the way that I process when Becky was talking about, visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. I have to use all three to process new information and new ideas. So I'm always taking notes and I'm writing them down. 50% of the time, at least, I may never go back and read them, but they help put them in my head more deeply. So, Tim, would you be willing to take us out tonight?
Absolutely. Thank you, Patty. Well, it's been a great evening or morning or wherever you are on the, as I mentioned, the Big Blue Marble. We're grateful for each one of you for spending the time with us over these last about 90 minutes. We're grateful for everybody's participation. To echo what Patty just shared, these conversations really are enjoyable when everybody participates, and it really becomes an experiential opportunity. So thank you again for everybody that was on and everybody that is on YouTube. We appreciate you being on, appreciate you. Hopefully you participated in the chat or liked and subscribed, and so that you can see the future episodes that are coming. And just a reminder, mention once again that Blair does have those historical notes. This is your insider notes from each one of the Blair Dunkley experiences from 318 to now, episode 348 and moving forward. Just that opportunity to get a little bit more clarity, a little bit more specificity when you go into these mind models. It's the notes that we didn't have an opportunity to touch on that you can go just a little bit deeper on your own time and in your own way. And so if you'd like to grab those are available. Blair has those for $25 a month for $300 a year. Again, if you go to www.blairdunkley.com/BDE-insider-notes, you can grab those. Just a great way to take an even deeper dive into the mind models. And then just a reminder to stay tuned for the Mind Model Mastery Secrets podcast that will be new episodes launching here in the next little bit. As soon as Blair is recovered well, and we wish him well while he is in having surgery. So we look forward to the podcast. And again, you can go to either Mind Mastery, if you just search Mind Model Mastery Secrets on any of your podcast platforms, you should be able to find it there. Or if it's easier, just go to mindmodelmastery.podbean.com and you should be able to find it there as well. Again, thank you everybody for being here. We're here on Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Mountain, 9 p.m. Eastern, and please join us next Tuesday. We appreciate you guys all being here. Have a great rest of your day wherever you are. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.